ਨੇ ਇਸ ਬਿਜ਼ਨਸ ਤੇ ਟੈਕਸ ਤੇ ਇੰਸ਼ੋਰੈਂਸ ਇੰਨਾ ਵਧਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਆ ਬਈ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਮਜਬੂਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਤੋਂ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਹੋਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਿੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਈਏ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਕਈ ਕੰਪਨੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ
I just want to start by thanking all of you for coming here today. I know Indrajit, I want to thank Indrajit for approaching me, for always supporting me and helping me and giving me his ideas of what's required for your industry. But I've done different town hall meetings or forums in the past. Over the last year, I've done auto insurance town hall because that's a big issue in our riding. I've been doing that since almost 2007, discussing auto insurance, what we're doing about it, having town halls. I've done a healthcare town hall, and why I do these meetings is because I think it's really important that in order to really understand what people want, you have to hear from them. You can't make policies and ideas based on your own ideas. It's the people out there who have the experience, who live every day, who deal with this. They're the ones that can really tell you what needs to be done. So I'm a true believer in town hall meetings. I'm a true believer in going to speaking to people to get their ideas. But that's really how you can develop policies that work for people. What we're doing, what we're thinking, and what we did today. And you know, before I get this started, I do want to speak about, and I want to also, I want to thank my fellow candidate, Randeep Sandhu, who's here today. He's also our candidate from Brampton West. He's also he was already having a great interest in the province. He's currently our MPP for Newmarket Aurora. And he's our official opposition critic for transportation and infrastructure. So he really knows his stuff. Most importantly, he's always open to hear ideas. He's traveled all across Ontario. He's extremely friendly, down to earth, listens to our needs, has a great relationship with our community. And that's why I thought he's the best MPP to bring here today to have this discussion and to listen to your questions and concerns. So I'm so thankful because he is such a busy individual that he took the time out to come to Brampton. And this is something that we want because, again, whether you live in Brampton Springdale or in the Brampton area, you know, Brampton's a huge city. I want it to have more attention. It's a growing city. We have wonderful people here who invest with their families, small businesses. We pay high taxes, and yet I often feel we're just ignored as a city. Yet we're one of the fastest growing cities, over 500,000 people. So the only way we're going to get our voice heard is if we have that representation and we speak and we get those concerns voiced out to Queen's Park. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Mr. Frank Klees, allow him to speak, and I really hope that you do participate with your questions and comments. And if you feel comfortable just speaking in Punjabi, that's not a problem because we can let him know what we're saying afterwards. So I don't want that to stop you from speaking. So I'm going to hand the mic over to Frank Klees.
Thank you, Pam. Especially with Pam, let me tell you, those of you who don't know Pam Hundle, this is a woman that we look forward to having at Queen's Park as a member of provincial parliament. And the reason for that is from the very first time that I met Pam, she struck me as someone who would make an outstanding public servant. I was talking, I won't identify who it was, but someone told me earlier that when Kathleen Wynne, who is going to be sworn in tomorrow, as the new Premier, that when she was Minister of Transportation, there was a petition presented to her that itemized the concerns that the trucking industry had. And they never heard back from her again. Nothing was done. Now, what does that mean? Obviously, to Kathleen Wynne, who as of tomorrow afternoon will be the new Premier, this is not an issue that is very important to her. I want you to know that it's important to us, it's important to Pam, and that's why we're here today. I don't have all the answers. I'm not here to say that I do. But as a former Minister of Transportation as well, I do know that there are issues, and I know this, that as a transportation minister, if you're doing your job, you can make a difference. But it takes a minister who is actually willing to listen, first of all, to the stakeholders, hear from them personally, and then make a decision. Unfortunately, in government today, all too often ministers do not do that. They allow the bureaucracy to develop policy that often has nothing to do with reality. You know, it's easy to make policy. As Pam said before, we're here to listen to you. It's easy for a deputy minister, it's easy for an assistant deputy minister, it's easy for a policy group within a government ministry to come forward to a minister and say, here's what we should do. And that's how you ended up with a 70% increase in licensing fees, because somebody in a ministry said, oh, we need more revenue. And so here is one of the 150 ways that the Ministry of Transportation can do its part to raise revenue for government, without any consideration for the fact that they may well be putting small business people out of business just on that one policy issue. It's wrong. And I can tell you that I'm disappointed in the current Minister of Transportation, Mr. Shirelli, for whom I have a great deal of personal respect. I consider him a friend. But I wrote to Bob Shirelli when this announcement was made, and I said, Bob, this is not right. You cannot do this. A 70% increase to people who are already having difficulty making ends meet, with all of the other expenses, whether it's rising gas costs, whether it's other overhead labor costs, whether it's competition from outside, whether it's disposal fees. You cannot lay this kind of an increase on people who have nowhere else to go to get the money. He didn't listen. And my recommendation to him, you've got a copy of a letter in front of you that I sent out to a number of people who called me. It's the same letter that I sent to Bob Shirelli, essentially, where I said, look, and this was in late December, there's not much we can do now about the December increase, but don't implement the projected increases for 2013 as you've outlined them. At the very least, allow those increases to be brought in over time so that the business can absorb it and people have the opportunity to plan for it. Didn't listen. And I'm here to say, along with Pam and Randy, that should we have the opportunity to form government, we will take a very different approach to working with stakeholders. Yes, we have a problem. Our province has a huge deficit. We're paying $10 billion in interest a year. Gentlemen, ladies, do you hear me? $10 billion in interest on our debt every year. That's because of the last number of years of government that has spent money that they didn't have. And they had to borrow money to give people what they wanted but didn't necessarily need. You see, there's a difference. You don't do that in your business. It might be nice to have a new renovated office, but if you can't afford it, you don't go out and borrow money to renovate your office because you know that that makes no sense. $10 billion a year in interest alone.
It's been very difficult for being in Ontario to really support ourselves. And when we heard about these licensing fees, it's been going up, and that's another really slap on transportation industry. Starting from, if you start from the insurance, licensing, fuel, cost of the trucks, it's everything there that is getting so difficult to run the business. We know any business is not an easy business, but being in a transportation business, is getting so hard. 85% of the goods, I believe, hauls by trucks, transportation, but nobody is really doing nothing about it. So when we look at just crossed the border, I was talking to my colleague and they were running a transportation business. And I said, what you guys getting for the dollar of the miles? He's saying, we get about $1 per miles. I said, how can you afford it? I guess the insurance, what they pay to their drivers, they pay 36 cents to our drivers. We can't even find a guy for 42 cents a mile. How can we compete with those people who can do for $1 per mile? We can't even break up with $1.50 a mile. So there's so many issues that we cannot do as an individual, we have to do as a group. You are the people who can take our voice to the next level, but we appreciate you being here today, and I'm sure looking forward, we will be talking to a lot of people, and this has to go forward. It's not that we talk in the room and then that's it, disappear. It cannot disappear. So I guess we have to, all of us have to get together and be part of it. Support them, support Hundal, support Klees and other colleagues who are really supporting this. So please, all I can say that you have to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you know, the fact is that the trucking industry in Canada is a $65 billion industry. There are more than 200,000 drivers alone, and some 400,000 people, jobs in this country, indirectly involved in the trucking and rely on the trucking industry. In Ontario, we have some 70,000 drivers. And to the point that was made, you're absolutely right. This is a huge industry. Our economy is absolutely reliant on the trucking industry. Our cross-border trade, 85% of all of the products that are traded internationally between Canada and the United States are transported by the trucking industry. And so the industry is fundamental to our economy, and it cannot be ignored. And the commitment that Pam and I and Randeep give you as an industry is that you will have an ear. You've heard some of the things that I've said in terms of some of the practical things that need to be addressed. We'll commit to working with you.
Thank you for being here, and it's not so much of a question because I share the concerns now, and we got to do some traction with it together. 4 concerns. First, why are there too many scales in Ontario? Every 100 kilometers, there's a scale. And if you look at the US models, there's a scale when you go into a state, and there's a scale when you come out of the state. And all these officers, supervisors that are manning these scales are being paid from our money. So it's a gigantic bill that must be coming through. I know we understand regulation, but to what degree? Number 2 is a general question, not just the transportation, it's about the cost of life. Now that taking your concerns, now that the dollar is at parity, and in some cases even higher than parity, our milk is still $5 a gallon. In US it's $2 a gallon. Our gas is more expensive. Our energy is more expensive. So how are we going to compete with that market? You know, Ford plant out of St. Thomas, that's gone south. Camaro's gone out of Oshawa. Caterpillar's pulled out their plant out of London. John Deere's gone out of Niagara Falls. What are we left with here? I mean, if we don't start competing dollar to dollar, we've got to bring the cost of life down. As you were saying, our drivers want 42 cents because the cost of life is so much. It's so expensive to buy a house. It's so expensive to buy a car, and the car insurance and the fuel that goes into it, right? And so many other factors, your groceries, everything. Like a ketchup bottle is almost $4 here. In the US, it's like $1.50. So that's the cost of life. I got a phone call coming in. So the third is the fly-by-night brokers that we talked about. We all started, and I'm sure there are a lot of people jumping into this business right now. What happens is there are crooks out there. They'll take a load from Rosen, right? and posted on the link, and Load Solutions ends up taking the load. The load never existed, we move the freight. I mean, the load existed, we move the freight, but there's no money that transacted anywhere. So he will end up paying me, and I'll end up paying the driver, but he won't make any money. There's so many of these fly-by-nights that still exist, and we had a seminar, a town hall in 2007, and nothing ever got done with this government. And that's one of the reasons why I'm jumping into it myself. And the fourth is, like, we lose so many drivers on our Interstate 11 and 17 in the north. There are no rest areas to pull. You know, when it's snowing that bad, every truck is like sliding against the other truck coming in the oncoming traffic. Sometimes you lose the glass doors or the glass panes on the side. Sometimes it's the life. Like, I've lost 2 friends to that. And when is Ontario going to do anything about the rest areas in the north, and especially in snows? Just 4 concerns. Thank you.
Well, folks, you've got someone in the industry who knows the industry issues very well, who's running for office. I think probably one of the best things you could do is make sure that he's in the legislature after the next election, and you know you'll have a voice who really understands what's going on here. But let me just
show that I don't snooze in the back.
That's right. He won't be snoozing in the back because you'll make sure he doesn't. Right? But you know, this is a good example of practical issues that there's no reason not to implement them. You know, we talk about the North, and we talk about how important it is to open up the North and to encourage economic activity and so on and so forth, right? There's a lot of talk about that. You can't do that if you don't have a reliable and efficient and effective transportation system to ensure that that's sustainable. And so the issue of rest areas for truckers, that is not a complex issue. That is something that a Minister of Transportation can simply direct his deputy to say, look, I want a plan on my desk within 30 days, consult with the industry as to where those rest areas should be, what is required for them, and I want a budget, and I want to know what it's going to take to implement that. That is what a Minister of Transportation should be doing. Those are the practical things that we learn as we get together with you in sessions like this, and those are the kind of practical actions that you can expect from a PC government. Thanks for your input. See you at Queen's Park. You're all busy people, and you could be elsewhere, if nowhere else with your family. But we sincerely appreciate the fact that you've taken the time out of your very busy schedule to be here. By your numbers, you're telling us how important this is. And I know that many of you represent literally hundreds of individuals who rely on this industry and families who rely on the industry. If I leave you with nothing else this afternoon, it should be, hopefully, with the knowledge that we understand that this industry is important to the province of Ontario, and that at the very least you deserve a government that is going to work with you to ensure that your industry is sustainable and that it's profitable so that you can continue to do what you want to do, and that is simply to make a contribution to the economy and earn a living for yourself and your family and the people that you employ. Thank you very much.
Okay, gentlemen, I just want to thank you again for coming out, and I want to thank Frank so much for always being supportive and bringing all your knowledge to the table and providing that to all of us. ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੀਮਤੀ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਆ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਹੱਕ ਬਣਦਾ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਹੁਣ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਬਣਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਇਸ਼ੂਜ਼ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, and we have to make our MPPs more accountable to us. So that they understand, you know, tomorrow when we're elected, we have to understand what your issues are, what your concerns are, and we have to be able to stay in touch with each other. So I want to ask all of you, please stay in touch with myself or Randeep Let us know what's going on, if there's any changes, and during election time, that's what we're here for, to listen to you, so that in the hopes that when we do form government, we're able to actually represent your needs, we're able to be a voice, we're actually able to make a change in the province. I think it's far too long. There's no changes, there's false promises, there's no representation, and people are just getting tired of it, and they have no faith in government or their elected representatives. So we have to make a change. We have to change that image of politicians. At the end of the day, we're all human, we're all individuals, we all work, we all have families, and some of us want to step up to the plate and represent you and your voice, and we want that opportunity to do that. So I thank you for coming out today, and I thank you for your time, but I do hope that you take that responsibility to stay in touch with us, give us your questions, your concerns, whether it's myself, Randeep, the party itself, Indrajit, the guy here, he's always in touch with me, as he's one of big supporter and helper of mine, and if there's anything I can ever do personally, please just let me know, and thank you again for coming out today. Well, please